Welcome to the Seesaw Tech Integrationist Success Series. This is actually session 4. So we provide these on our YouTube channel. So if you missed previous ones, take a peek there. I'm Angela. I taught kindergarten for 15 years. I had 5 iPads in my lovely classroom, and I lead the community team here at Seesaw, really working to support teachers all over the world as they get started, and also coaches and tech integrationists and admins like you as well. So make sure you chat with me on Twitter if you'd like to reach out or ask any questions. And also note that what should you expect in these sessions? So some of you have been along with us since the very first session, but for those of you that are new to this series, we really cover a variety of topics, share practical ideas and resources, and hopefully provide you with a community of colleagues that you can really bounce some ideas around with. And it's every Wednesday, not every Wednesday, oh goodness. Every month, the second Wednesday is when we do this series. So if you haven't registered for additional ones, make sure you do that if this is new to you. And we also offer certificates. So if you're watching the recording, you'll need to write down a code that we shared during the session to get the certificate sent to you. If you are live, no worries. You don't have to do anything. You just sit back and relax. So today I'm actually really excited as we go into this 4th session. Their topic today is 84 days to 2020, reflect, support, and inspire. And this session is going to be very unique in the sense that what I'm giving to you is the gift of time to actually do these things. So a lot of the information that I'm going to share is going to be in the form of questions that I'm asking you and giving you time to actually reflect and maybe make a plan and really take that moment to breathe, right? So that's what we are jumping into today. And if you think about 84 days, you can also look at it a few different ways. 7,257,600 seconds, or maybe 120,960 minutes, or 2016 hours. My favorite actually is when I look at the bottom, 23.01% of 2019. So when I started thinking about this session and the needs, predicting maybe your needs at this time of year, I've also realized that most of you just got done with some really busy back to school months if you are in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're thinking about July and August and September, right? So there's a lot going on, and I want to give you that time to reflect, to pause, because we don't often have that or provide that for ourselves. So that is what we are doing today. That's what this is all about. So when we are looking at our plan for today, I was just going to say reflect, 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 but I thought I'd maybe give you some more specifics. We will have that time to pause and reflect. You're going to check in with some goals that maybe you set earlier this year. We're going to go through a couple exercises which will hopefully help you better to be able to look at what you're doing in your your day-to-day work, but also look at how can you support making sure you're working towards your goals. And really, I want you to walk away from this time today with a plan to take action. What are you going to do when you leave this session today? And again, we are recording this, so you might be listening to this in several months, and hey, why not revisit it, right? Every time is a good time to kind of pause and reflect. So because this is really hands-on in the sense that you are going to be really thinking and working and writing down and reflecting, I'm going to offer you some opportunities. So of course, you could reflect in a Seesaw class. So I actually created a Seesaw class just for this session. You can join it as a student. You would not be a teacher in this class. You could join it as a student and scan that QR code there on the left if you want to play around with that and use that as your space to reflect. Kind of the bonus of that is anyone that is also here, you will see what they're sharing in there as well and can maybe give some comments and feedback. If you are live, the text code is actually on the screen as well. If you're watching the recording, that text code will not work for you. Second option, how about a nice old-fashioned notebook, right? So I am a big notebook user, and you might be too. So maybe you're going to write things down on a Post-it note. Maybe you're going to be creating and reflecting in that format, or maybe you're going to do a combination of both. And then third, an option is to jump on Twitter. So you might want to share your reflections in a tweet, add the hashtag Seesaw Chat, and maybe 84 days, since that is our theme. Again, we have 84 days left in 2019. What are you going to do with that time? So a lot of what I'm sharing today was actually inspired by a book that I have recently read and listened to, I think about 3 times at this point. It's called Atomic Habits. If you have not heard about it or seen it, some of the things that we're going to be talking about were inspired by this book. So I would definitely check it out. Maybe get it on Audible and listen to it as you are moving back and forth to and from school each day. But all sorts of amazing nuggets here. So that is part of what inspired this, as well as reflecting on the incredibly busy time of year that you've probably just kind of exited out of. So are we ready? Here we go. So again, this is really time built in for you to do a lot of reflecting. So be prepared for me to offer up a reflection and give you time to do that right here live. So if exercise number 1, here we go. So when you think about July and August and September, all that has maybe just occurred if you are listening to this live, what are 3 things that you can list that went well? So this might be something related to Seesaw goals that you set out to support your staff. This might be something else that you're thinking about. What things were, if you take the moment to reflect, what are 3 things that went really well? And I do want you to write these down or post to our Seesaw class, or maybe even tweet it out if you feel comfortable. But I'm going to give you about 1 minute for this particular exercise to list those 3 things that went really well. I'm going to play a little background music, just so you can feel confident that we're still connected here. But go ahead and give that a go. There's my timer. Wasn't that lovely, right? So what we're going to do, I came back to this slide because you might be reflecting and joining our class just for this session. So I went back to kind of show that. So hopefully, again, this is all about your time today. I really am baking in this time for you to reflect and think, which I know is so hard to do when you're, rushing around in your daily happenings in your life, right? So we're going to hop right into reflection number 2. And I'm probably not going to hop into our Seesaw class or check in with that, maybe not till the end of the session. But if you finish a reflection and there's still time, you can obviously look through that class if you're curious what other people are doing, or hop on Twitter. Maybe they're sharing there to Seesaw Chat or hashtag 84 days. So reflection exercise number 2, who are you? How do you describe yourself? What do you believe about yourself? So go ahead, and I'm going to, again, give you 1 minute for this particular exercise. All right, so you just had a moment there. I have a couple people that continue to ask me for the code here, so I'm just going to put that on the screen. This will kind of be the last time I'm going to plop it there. If you're still trying to join in because you want to reflect and share in Seesaw, you could do that. As a reminder, that QR code will last for a while, forever actually. So keep that in mind. So you might be saying, Angela, why are you asking me to talk about myself, who I am? It's going to connect to the next thing that we actually do. So just wait for it, right? Reflection number 3. So checking in. One of our biggest tasks today is really pausing to check in and refocus on our goals. So if you think about what was a Seesaw goal you set earlier this year, and in your role, that might be something that encompasses all the teachers in your district. It might be something that encompasses all the teachers in your building. Maybe you were focusing on a grade level. Maybe you were focusing on even one specific teacher. What was that Seesaw goal that you set earlier this year? I want you to write that down. And I also want you to take a moment and write or just sketch out what progress have you actually made to reach that goal. So it might be a goal that you set that, you know, you were going to be on a journey throughout this entire year to get to. Maybe it was something, I'm going to get to this goal in the first 6 weeks of school. Okay. So it doesn't matter. Whatever that was, I'm of course throwing out Seesaw as a goal that you might have had in some form to kind of narrow down this process for you a little bit. So in this instance, I'm actually going to give you about 2 minutes to spend a little bit longer, not only writing down what your goal was for Seesaw earlier in the year, but more so what progress have you made, and kind of reflect and think about that. And if you're saying to yourself, I had no goals set out at the beginning of this year, this would be a great opportunity to formulate one right now as you go into this 84 days to 2020. So take this next couple minutes to do that right now. Okay, so you might, oh yeah, some people are typing their goal in the question box. You can do that as well. So right now you might be feeling a little bit of stress because you might be thinking, I didn't really have a goal. Or, oh my gosh, I'm nowhere even close to my goal. Or maybe you're feeling like, I totally rocked that, nailed that, goal done, I need a new one. So whatever state that you are at right now, cool, let's go with that. But I want to tie this also back into the question that I asked earlier, who are you? because one of the things that I came to my attention in this Atomic Habits book that he talks about is that behaviors that are not aligned with your beliefs or your identity are a lot harder to get stuck, right? To stick, to really make happen. So if you maybe didn't have the correct supports in place, or you didn't have a really good system for really reaching that goal, or have really clear steps to get there, you might be feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm not even close, right? So on the other hand, you might be feeling like, actually, I did amazing and I'm ready again to tackle a new one. So what we're going to do today during this session is really spend time breaking that down to make it more approachable for how you are going to actually achieve your goals. So the next exercise we're actually going to do is you're going to create a list. And again, if you're just hopping in, a lot of this session is going to be giving you time to do these things. So we are going to create a list, and I'm going to explain why we're doing that after you kind of think through this a little bit. So it's going to have two columns. On the left are things that you do every single day. Okay, these might be things like I wake up, I brush my teeth, I take a shower, I drive to school. It can be as discreet as you want, or bigger, you know. Discrete is actually really good, little teeny pieces. I get my cup of coffee, I check in my office, I log on to my computer, whatever you want it to be. And then on the right-hand side, I want you to list things that happen to you every day. What are those things that you can guarantee are going to happen? The sun's probably going to rise. You're probably going to have to stop at a stop sign. Maybe you're caught at a red light. You get to school and a teacher emails you, okay? So all those things that you can predict happen to you every single day. So start that list. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to kind of start jotting down those details of what your typical day is like. All right, there's my timer. So what we're going to do with this list is this is really going to help us find those spots that we know happen every single day in our lives. And what we're going to end up doing is we are going to do a quick exercise here where if you're thinking about that goal that you set, okay, so a goal maybe you set at the beginning of the year, or maybe you just created a new one right now. It's going to be easier for you to get going with that current behavior if you combine it and pair it up with something that you know you are already doing. Okay, so a couple people are just joining in. Our topic today is 84 days to 2020. We are going through various exercises to really give us the opportunity to reflect and make some plans of action. So what we are going to do right now is, on the left you see kind of this setup. After I do what's a current behavior you do every single day, maybe brush your teeth, right? I will do what new behavior are you trying to do. So if it's not school related, it could be something, an example, it would be like, hey, I'm really trying to be more active. I need to, I really want to start really basic. So every day after I brush my teeth, I will do 5 jumping jacks. Okay. Or more school related or tasks that you might say is, after I arrive at my desk in the morning, I will email one teacher to check in. Maybe you're reaching out to that teacher. So we made that list in the previous exercise to really be able to look and see what are those things that happen every single day that I could combine or pair with something I want to do, because that is going to be kind of a cue to you, like, oh yeah, I said after I did this, I was going to do this. I'm going to start doing this. So think about what you could combine to support the goal that you're trying to reach. If your goal is, gosh, I want to get, I want to make sure I'm supporting teachers the best way I can in checking in with teachers. This example here might work. I'm going to reach out via email to one teacher every single day after I sit at my desk in the morning. Okay, so I want you to pause and think about that. You might want to look back at what you did in the previous exercise to pick out that cue during the day that's going to remind you that you're going to actually start doing this new behavior to really reach your goal. We're going to take about a minute to sketch that out. All right, we're working hard here today. So I love that you're with me. One of the things I want to talk about, and again, this really is inspired and shared in that book I mentioned, Atomic Habits, that vision is our most dependent sense. We actually have so many cues that we see in our environment that really impact our behavior. So kind of keeping that in your mind, here's an example. So visual cues can really support desired behavior. So for example, I would love my kids to eat more fruits and vegetables. So guess what I did? I put a bowl of fruits and vegetables right on our dining room table. Okay. And my daughter, who's in 3rd grade, came up to me. She's like, I eat so many clementines now, Mom, right? Because they're right there. They're sitting in front of her. So these little tiny changes can actually make a pretty big impact. So if you think about how this transfers to a school setting or maybe your classroom, maybe it looks like this. Thinking first, where are the devices? Are they hidden in the classroom? Are they front and center? When I was in my classroom, my devices were front and center. Actually, right at our classroom meeting spot was where mine were, easily accessible for students, because I wanted them to always know that that was an opportunity they could be presented with to share their learning. So if you think about how some of these visual cues are set up maybe in your school or your district, thinking about even where devices are might be something to consider. If you have devices on a cart that are nowhere near a classroom and a teacher has to take several steps to even get those devices, maybe that's something to think about. What if we broke this cart apart and put 5 devices in each classroom? Again, I'm not saying that's the best scenario, but think about how are we setting up some cues in the environment, right, to really support some goals and or behaviors that lead us to those goals. And looking around, what supports are in place maybe to really support routines in a classroom. So I just gave a couple examples here, but even on a classroom door, our We Seesaw poster, or at a station, or a recording spot, the visual of the recording spot is hanging up. Or again, even to the class sign-in poster that is visually in the classroom too. So those are some other things that might play into this idea of visual cues. So which brings me again to call out a couple more things. You can really, when you're reflecting and thinking about this goal that you wrote down, how are you designing your environment to create situations where it's obvious that it's going to lead you to a behavior that supports your goal? Okay, so again, going back to the example in my house of I have the bowl of fruit on the table because I want them to go there first instead of getting some junk food in the pantry. What if you think about your goal that you wrote down? Are there things that you can set up in your space? And it doesn't even have to be big. It could be something really little that you could do that might support that. And or thinking in a different lens, how could you create some designs in an environment that might support your teachers and support them taking action in a certain way? So I'm going to give you about maybe a minute or two to jot down some ideas. Think about some things that you might try to design your environment. All right. Thanks for hanging in here today. I know this is a different format than you're used to normally in our webinars, but I wanted to bake in this time for you to really reflect and sketch out some ideas and some plans. Here's another example. When we talk about pairing an existing behavior with a new one, or setting up some of these visual cues. We had shared before some of these posters that we call Seesaw Snapshots. So these are printables that we have ready that can be hung up in your school. So this might be an idea. After I use the restroom, I will read a seesaw tip. So I've seen several schools that try this, or they hang this up by the copy machine. A teacher already has the behavior. They might be going to that copy machine, and this is right next to it. We know they're probably getting to go to the restroom at some point during the day. Maybe a tip is right there. So again, what are these things that could give off various cues to remind or spark us into, oh yeah, that's right, that's right. Another thing that I want to talk about is when you started, ooh, I'm jumping ahead here. When you started this session, I asked you to write down a goal that you had set for the beginning of the year, or, maybe a few months ago. And you might have gotten to the point, as I mentioned, where you feel like, oh gosh, I'm nowhere near that, or I forgot about it, or I've made no progress. So just a tip, how do you start really, really small? It's much more important to do it a lot, even if it's a teeny, teeny, tiny action. Building up that repetition is really important. So again, I relate this to, when I was in my classroom and we were setting up our reading routines, we called it stamina, right? So if we were doing read to self, boy, we had everyone out there, and if they could all read to self for 10 seconds, that was amazing. And then maybe we got to a minute. And boy, when we built on that minute and we were really good, maybe we went to 90 seconds, and then we went to 2 minutes, and we're building that repetition. There's a lot of muscle memory involved in that, but we really want to be successful. We want to get that success really quickly and be able to repeat it. So when you're thinking about your goal, it might be helpful, if you feel like you haven't made a lot of progress, to break it down into simpler steps. So for example, let's say you are working with a teacher that is really terrified of technology, okay? And you're trying to get to the goal of, in this classroom, students are initiating Seesaw posts on their own. It's just a natural flow of the classroom. This is just how it goes, right? It's daily integrated, or students have that ability to just go for it, okay? Boy, that's a big goal, right? For some teachers, that's huge. Other teachers, they could fly to that goal in one day, okay? But I'm really kind of focusing on maybe that really tech reluctant or teacher that really needs a lot of your support. So maybe phase one is we get or encourage the routine of every day when you come to school and you sit at and you turn your computer on, you log into Seesaw. That's all you do. You don't do anything else. But every day, if they sit at their computer, they log into Seesaw, awesome. If they're successful with that and they've built that up, let's go to number 2. Maybe phase 2 is they're really good at logging in. They've got it. Now let's try to post to Seesaw as a sample student. Maybe that's the next behavior. So if you're thinking back and reflecting and thinking, oh gosh, how do I break this down? How do I make this really, really simple and obtainable to, various goals? Take a moment to break it down into super, super easy, leading to more difficult, okay? So I want you to do that right now with your goal that you set out. So maybe, again, it might be a new goal that you just wrote down in this session. It might be a goal that you haven't yet gotten to, that you're trying to get to. And I'm actually going to give you about 2 minutes to work through this, to think about, how can I break it down into the easiest component to really build that routine, to start leading us towards the ultimate goal. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to keep moving on here. And here's an example of something that you could use to kind of even break this down, right? So if you had typically done an hour-long session and it's important for maybe the really hesitant teacher, maybe you're doing one training station in a small group, you know, during a grade level meeting, and you're just like, hey, let's try this one thing. It's going to take 3 minutes. Let's do it together. Okay. So you could even use this resource if that's something that would support the goal that you have sketched out. And we always like to stay accountable, right? So here are some cues. Again, I'm kind of enlisting some visual cues, as we know, to kind of help you keep on track with your system or steps that you've developed. So it might be something that I'm sticking 4 Post-it notes on my computer, because every day when I arrive at work, those 4 Post-it notes are going to represent, you know, each represents a teacher that I need to work with or I want to work with, or those are 4 classrooms that I'm going to make sure families are connected to. Whatever you want to do to set up those reminders. If you are thinking, boy, I never can sit down, I am constantly moving and grooving, maybe you start the day and you have 5 pennies in your pocket. And after you do, you know, the behavior or habit that you're trying to form, you move it to the other pocket. And by the end of the day, you want those pennies emptied out because you have, again, kept yourself accountable. So think about how that might work for you. And also, this is a fun way. Who doesn't like to cross things off? So you might have a calendar, pretty easy. Cross things off. Say that you did it. Maybe this will help you as well. And then I like this one too. And again, I heard this in the Atomic Habits book, and also from the trainers that I work with at my health club. This thinking, don't miss twice. So if you do something and you have a really busy day and you're like, shoot, I didn't do what I said I was going to do, it's okay. Just don't miss twice. Get back on and keep going again. So last thing that we're going to do today is take a moment. What is your action plan? What is your plan? It might be as simple as, you know, when I walk past, you know, this classroom, I'm going to do this. When I sit down at my computer, I'm going to check into one Seesaw class. You know, whatever. I'm going to start with making sure one classroom has family members connected. Whatever you're going to do, again, to make it more likely that you're going to do it, you might use the format, when I do something you're already doing, then I will. What's the next thing you hope to do? How do you combine those two to make it more likely that you're going to have it happen? And then, of course, share it. Find a partner to make you accountable. Maybe you want to tweet it out and say, this is what I'm going to do. Maybe you want to post it in the Seesaw class that we created. What are you going to do? What is your action plan? Take a minute to gather your action steps. Here we go. All right, there's my timer. Question coming in. Is the Seesaw class going to be open for a while after this session? I'll keep it open. We'll play around there, see if people are sharing in that format. I'm going to give out a code to get the certificate. If you're watching for the recording, if you're watching via recording, the code is 284619. And again, if you're live, you don't have to worry. You will get that certificate automatically. Again, this resource I shared kind of in the slides, but again, we have Seesaw Snapshots, which are, again, things that you can use that might help assist in moving towards your goal as it relates to Seesaw. If you're trying to support teachers, even having them create their first class or get families connected or just an idea to get started, these are here for you as well. And of course, you already know about PD and PJs, but our calendar is available on this website, so we hope you check that out as well. And our Facebook group, if you're not there for Tech Integrationists, I want you to get there right now. Lots of great ideas showing up there as well, so make sure you check that out. And I'm going to pause right here on this slide so we can have just maybe a couple minutes to answer any questions you have, but we really appreciate your time being here. It's helpful if you fill out the survey that pops up if you are here live. Let us know what you thought about this session and join us again next time. Next month, actually, we have Matt Miller coming. He's going to be sharing some PD professional development tips as well.